Hello there. You're listening to Shaff Dives You Crazy podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Emperor Divers, trusted dive pros with epic trips in the Red Sea, Maldives, and more. Check them out at emperordivers.com. Hey everyone, welcome back to Shaff Dives You Crazy. Today's guest is someone who truly lives for exploration. He's one of Sri Lanka's pioneering technical divers, a fearless cave and wreck explorer, and an author who's captured some of the ocean's greatest secrets through his books and photography, and also the founder of divesrilanka.com. And on top of all that, he's also played a huge role in my own journey. He was a support team leader during my 50-hour record dive, making sure everything ran smooth while I was underwater. So today we are diving into his crazy adventures, the highs, the close calls, and what it really takes to chase the unknown beneath the waves. Please welcome Dharshana Jayawardena, or DJ as I call him, or number 4 as he is known. Welcome, DJ.
Hi, Shaff. Really good to be in this episode. Thank you for adding me.
Always a pleasure. So, for those who don't know you yet, can you give a quick intro about who you are?
All right. I think I can describe myself as a underwater explorer when it comes to diving. And my passion has really been to uncover mysteries, especially trying to figure out where are shipwrecks, what are the origins of the shipwrecks, and the stories, the backstories behind them. And then when I got to cave exploration, of course, I wanted to figure out whether there are any caves in Sri Lanka. So I did some exploration and found Sri Lanka's first extensive underwater system. So in a nutshell, ships and caves is what keeps me excited and really motivated to explore.
How did you get into diving?
Purely
And
accidental. I was in the US and I was actually I couldn't swim. I was about 30 years old. And
really?
yes, and I went to Bermuda because I had a friend there, and they had organized this try dive, scuba try dive. And I said, okay, I'll try it. And then they said, well, you don't know how to swim. I said, well, you don't need to swim because you're just sinking. They talked to the instructor, and the instructor said, yeah, as long as he doesn't panic, yeah, I'll take him down. But what happened was when I tried to do that, I really freaked out in the sense I didn't lose my cool, I didn't panic, but I couldn't handle the feeling of being underwater and breathing from my mouth. So the try dive, I gave up. So I just did my thumbs up sign and had to abort the dive. So I felt a bit ashamed of myself for giving up so easily. And then when I came back to Sri Lanka, I thought I'm just going to get the open water certification. That's it. Just, been there, done that sort of thing, just get the open water. Managed to get over my fear, did my open water course successfully, and didn't really dive for a while after that. But then actually, I came to Maldives. A friend convinced me
Okay.
to come to Maldives and try some dives, and I did about 7 dives, including my first night dive in Maldives. And then after that, I just got hooked. That's it. Case closed.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
From a non-swimmer to a technical diver.
exactly.
And what got you into technical diving?
Again, I think it's just progression. So I started diving, did a lot of recreational dives, liverboat dives. Maldives has been a favorite place for me. Of course, diving in Sri Lanka. And so I early on decided that I'm not going to get into to be a dive like a professional diver. So I did up to my rescue on the paddy stream. I decided I won't do dive master and instructor because I know I'm in the IT industry, right? So I thought I'm going to go tech. So I had that strategy like from a long time. And then slowly I did my like night rocks, deep speciality, did my tech. Those days, the tech only had like 3 steps. So after tech apprentice, tech deep, and tech trimix. And anyway, because of the availability of shipwrecks in Sri Lanka, right, that were deeper, I knew I had to do it the right way. Because I used to do deep dives without having tech, but clueless about the correct configurations, emergency procedures, gas management. So I knew I had to always do the right thing. So that also provided an incentive for me to do tech.
Was there a defining moment in that? Like, okay, this is what I'm going to do?
Um, I I really don't know how I decided it, but I figured that usually a lot of people they do the rescue, dive master, and instructor. So I thought maybe there'll be more utility in me specializing in the tech side rather than going on the commercial side. So this was just a reasoning I had. So there was nothing that contributed to it. It's just that I was looking at my future of my diving, and I felt exploration is what I wanted to do, and having tech as early as possible will be a good thing to do.
Oh, that's interesting. And like you just said, you are more drawn towards wrecks in Sri Lanka. What is it about this that pulls you into it?
That was a bit of a moment of epiphany because so I think one of the major changes, life changing experience was me starting to dive in Colombo. So I live in Colombo, but I've never dived. So I started diving in 2003 in Sri Lanka. And for the first 3 years, I was always going to either Trincomalee, which is on further away from Colombo, or down south to Galle and diving. And then a friend of mine introduced me to diving in Colombo, and we dived this wreck called the Cargo Wreck. So from that point onwards, did a lot of dives in Colombo, and then I realized that there were a lot more to be discovered. And most of the time, I was diving on my own, and met a lot of fishermen, got friendly with them, so they gave me locations, and I started exploring these unknown shipwrecks, right? No one knew where they came from, what they were. They were just shipwrecks, and most of the shipwrecks, the names are unknown. So I think the key experience for me was this deep ship in about 12 kilometers offshore. It was 20 sorry, it was around 57 meters, and it took me about 2 years to really get the location of the fisherman. But I did my first dive there, solo dive, tech solo dive, and again, even at that moment, I was diving more for the experience of being in a deep wreck. I love deep wrecks, and the kind of the natural, exciting vibe that that's around it, right? The fish, the
Yeah.
crackle of the reef. There's like so much energy, and it's like being in a different world, right? I was just diving the Worcestershire maybe 3 or 4 times, and suddenly I realized, like, what is this wreck? What's it doing here? And then I started to do a lot of research, and that's how I guess the start of a project that span almost so from 2011 to 2019, where I discovered that this ship could be the Worcestershire, which was sunk by German sea mines of a German commerce raider that was cruising in the South Indian Ocean, and disrupting British ship movements. So I was trying to find proof about the origins of the ship. So I used to go and measure with the beam of the ship, try to look for features like count the mass, number of boilers, and then look for artifacts, right? So I was after the bell. Uh, and in 2014, I found the bell after a lot of, like, almost going inch by inch everywhere in the ship, because it was like badly crumbled, and it's a massive ship, right? 130 meters or so. So yeah, so I found the bill of that, proving that it was the Worcestershire, sunk by the German commerce raider Wolf. And in 2019, there's another ship about 10, 15 miles
Okay.
north of the. I think you dived the Perseus, right?
Uh, no, I didn't. Yeah, I did the Sierra, the Tug, uh, Cargo.
Right,
I
right.
did,
Yes, yes.
and there was another two. I can't remember.
Yeah, so a bit north towards Colombo, from where you dived, is this massive shipwreck, right? So in 2010, I dived this with another friend, you know, Nishan, right? And
Yeah, Nishan.
yeah,
Yeah, of course.
at that time we had no clue about what that ship is, right? And again, we didn't have an interest about what it was. So it was like a little bit later on that I developed this instinct to question, like, where are these wrecks coming from? What are the origins? And at the Perseus, I used to do solo dives and spend almost every weekend looking for clues. And it was really frustrating compared to the Worcestershire, which actually within 3 years I managed to figure it out. But Perseus was a closed box. There was nothing. Circumstantial evidence, like there were the number of masts, the shape of the mast, the shape of the anchor, various types of tiles with British inscriptions. So all of those provided circumstantial evidence, right? But I couldn't find the bell, and I gave up. And what happened was I was doing my CCR training for cave diving in Thailand. I was going to do a 100-meter cave dive. I wanted to put as much as possible hours on the unit. And Perseus is such a beautiful wreck, right? I actually dream about it.
Yeah.
White, pristine sand. It's like my dream place. And so I just, on my rebreathe, I was spending hours and hours. And then I just wandered off into the sand and into areas that you normally don't dive because there's nothing, right? Just sand. And I happened to notice like this small thing coming out of the sand, like a small curvature. And I dug it up. It was the bell.
It must have drawn you to it. Yeah.
So it's a crazy story because I mean I spent so much time looking for clues,
Yeah.
couldn't find it, and then completely accidentally in a very random place, I bump into it. How crazy is that?
Yeah. That is just wow. Okay.
So those two bells are from the only two diveable World War I wrecks in Sri Lanka.
Maybe next time I go, I have to do the Perseus.
Yeah. Perseus, you have to do it. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. And what about caves? You found a cave system as well, right?
Yes. So again, I think sort of interesting stories. Like I really had no idea of diving caves, and it also came from shipwrecks. So I used to go into shipwrecks, and then one day I had a really bad experience. I got stuck in at the cargo wreck, and I was using wrong equipment, wrong configuration, and it was a near-death experience, right? So
Okay.
after that, I figured that if I'm going to do this, I need to do this thing properly. So I started cave diving in southern Thailand. With my instructor was a British instructor who lived in Thailand, and it was an amazing experience. Even though the when I did my first cave dive in Song Hong, and I almost gave up. I think this instant where I gave up, I think I like gave up in the sense I thought, why am I doing this? Right? It's like very claustrophobic. It's the water was cold, and there was like all this moss and all sorts of catfish and all that stuff in the pond. But I just held on, and I think that just turned a switch, and I kind of became desensitized. So after that, I was like a robot going through all the motions, but fully aware. But I think the whole thing about cave dive training is to take the emotions out, right? And then you
Yeah.
focus on your environment, what to do, emergency drills. And then after a while, you start to come to a point where you start enjoying. You actually start enjoying the claustrophobic feeling of like going through a narrow tunnel and squeezing out. I don't know how it becomes from pain to fun. Yeah, so I dived a lot of caves in Thailand, and then I was like, why aren't there caves in Sri Lanka, right? So I came back after my initial training, which covered the full cave as well. So like 3 courses. I think you do cavern, intro to cave, and full cave. Those days were the 3 TDI courses. So I came back to Sri Lanka and then started asking questions from people, geologists, are there caves in Sri Lanka? And the geologists were saying, unlike Thailand, the Sri Lanka, the geological formations are not limestone, it's rock. So chances of caves are very low. But then, like 6 months after I finished my course, I heard of this place called the Nildiyapokuna in Ella. Have you been to Ella, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lovely place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so I with a bunch of friends we just went to scope the place out, and it's a very interesting place. I would say one of the most intriguing and mysterious places in Sri Lanka. You have to drive up a mountain for about half an hour, then you park your car, then you walk in the jungle for about 45 minutes, and you come to this hole, right? It's just a hole. You have to basically rappel yourself down like 10 meters down the hole, and you come, it's a cave, right? So at that point,
Yeah.
you need to descend down like a tunnel for almost 1 hour before you get into this lake, underground lake.
Okay.
And the journey itself is really interesting because halfway down, you come to this massive chamber. Massive, right? You can build a 5-story building in it.
Wow.
It's 16 meters high and 80 meters wide, 75 meters. Like the grounds is a massive, right? There's a massive bowl in the middle as well, and that's the half point. So again, you have to keep going down, rocks and like pathway, and you come to this beautiful blue water pool. It's called the Nildiyapokuna, which in Sinhalese means the blue water pond. So as you look at it, it looks very shallow. So I was like, I know it's what a waste of time. I just came to look at small shallow pond. I was so disappointed, right? But then what I did was I had my mask and fins. Which you know what, when I go hiking in jungles, I take my mask and fins. My friends laugh at me, but you never know, right?
Yeah.
So I did a free dive and went to the edge of this cave. So the cave stops there. Went to the edge of the cave at the water line, and I did a dive. And I just had my torch, and I could see that it was going in. And at that moment,
Okay.
I was so excited. Did few more free dives, and came back the next week. Within 1 week, I had to obviously because the next day was work. Came back and did my first dive there. And then found out it to be a quite massive underwater cave. So since then, I did about 12 dives there, then mapped the whole cave. And it's basically like so if you imagine so you imagine the side of a mountain and imagine like a huge tunnel that goes down, not directly down, but let's say at an angle, and it ends with a
Yeah.
sump, right? It's like a massive tube. And obviously, water has filled the bottom part of the tube. Blue water
How?
pond is the start of the underwater section, and then the underwater section is like a massive chamber. The problem with that cave is that it's the rock is like so soft, and it's if you go open circuit, your bubbles
Yeah.
hit the roof and stuff falls on you.
Okay.
So it's a
So
bit unnerving. Uh,
it just sails up as well, right?
yeah, it seals up really
Yeah.
badly. It becomes coffee.
How deep?
During dry season, it's 23 meters at the deepest. During rainy season, 30 meters or slightly more. So it's not a
Okay.
very deep cave like the 100-meter Song Hong or Sakkawa in Thailand. But it was a nice challenge, because I think the main thing was like I had to do like expedition style. I had to hire several villagers to carry all my dive gear, like 3 tanks and side mount equipment, all that. So it was a very exciting period of my life. Very because it was a big mystery, right? Where does the cave end? How large is it?
Is that the only cave system in Sri Lanka that's explored?
It's the only underwater cave system I have found. There are dry caves, but nothing significant. I mean, there are small rock pools and stuff. I've looked for a few other places. I dive. I
Okay.
also did dive like a famous waterfall and another beautiful, like a small freshwater pond. Unfortunately, nothing beyond 6 meters.
It's such a mountainous area. Kendi, Ella.
A geologist told me that this is what he thinks is a collapsation cave. That
Okay.
during the ice age, post ice age, when the water started, the glacial melts happen, it basically caused a massive rock to slide down and create this massive space inside. within the rock and the mountain, right? So
Okay.
um,
Interesting.
yeah, but yeah, no, nothing else.
So, sort of like you could start some more exploration dives, yeah?
You mean for caves?
Yeah.
I'm sure there have places. It's a I think to really find locations is quite hard because sometimes it's kept secret. So like in villages, people know about these pools, but it's so in Sri Lanka there's this. I'll tell you one experience I had. You won't believe it. In Sri Lanka, there's this myth that anywhere that's like a naturally mysterious place, there's treasure buried,
Aha.
right? Like all the kings have buried treasure in under this. If so, there's a massive rock, people think there's treasure in the middle of it, right? So what happened once to me, like a couple of years ago, I went to explore this natural pool, waterfall, beautiful place called Rangala. It's called the Rangala Natural Pool, right? It looked promising because it was a rocky, sides were rocky, there's a small waterfall, and it looked like there could be caves underwater. So I got permission from the police, right? So I directly contacted the police there, the area policeman, the officer in charge of the area. And I went to for this dive with a police escort.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I had like two traffic police, one police life-saving person. And so this is by a road, like a road, right? So as I started the dive, soon people started to gather around, curious villagers. So when
Mhm.
I did the dive and couldn't find anything, like scanned all over, only thing I could find is like broken bottles of alcohol people had thrown in after they drank around the pool. So I brought all the junk, came up, and so there's a bridge on top of this waterfall lake sort of place, and it was full of people. And so I packed up my gear. We went back, and as we were going back to the police station, the OIC calls me and says someone has complained to the Ministry of Defense saying that treasure hunters were using scanners to dig treasure in this pool. And it became a huge issue, right? So I had to go to the
Mhm.
police station, and the OIC said, listen, sorry, now I'm also in trouble for allowing you to do this because now they are questioning me whether I'm also involved. So I had to give a statement. And I had to stay in the police station for 2 to 3 hours just to give a statement. And then there was an investigation at the regional level. So the police had appointed, Minister of Defense had appointed a very senior policeman to do another investigation. So on another day, I had to go to Kandy to meet what's called a DIG, or is like a
Yeah.
top level police
Yeah.
person. And so I had to go and explain. So I took my book and I said, listen, made this request. It wasn't the police, the officer in charge. He had nothing to do with it. He was just helpful. So please don't take it on him. I am an underwater explorer. So I explained, and he understood that this is a genuine case, and it just blew completely out of proportion.
Must have been really, really fun, no? Seeing all these people and then getting to know about the complaints.
Yeah. It's my point being, Shaff, is if there is something in the jungle or someplace, people are very suspicious about what you're trying to do. Even
Mhm.
though our spirit is exploration and discovery, right? So that getting that information is hidden because people believe, all right, now if someone comes here and starts exploring, they'll take the treasure away.
You took some of the treasures out, no?
I
No.
took, yeah, that people had thrown in, like
Yeah.
bottles and wrappers, plastic wrappers, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's one dive that you'll never forget?
You mean
You've
like
got.
one single dive?
Yeah.
I think there are lots, but I guess something that makes your heart beat is the time when I found the plane in the East Coast, or aircraft. Yeah, that first dive, I think that was a very exciting dive because I didn't know what I would find. And so the backstory is, I think you might know this fisherman in the East Coast was pulling his net. He found some debris, and he thought it was part of an airplane. And then he told his friend, another fisherman who was like a well-known person to me, and he called me up. So I immediately contacted The other person made an appointment and went on his boat, did a sonar scan, couldn't find it, and we were just drifting, right? And because I thought, okay, this must be like a, you never know, right? Most of these tips. So out of
Yeah.
all the leads I get, I would say ratio only 1 in 10 turns out to be anything. All the other time it's just sand or just small rubble reef or nothing at all, right? So it's a lot of work actually to get to a lead that's really it's tangible and it's explorable. As we were drifting, I was like almost given up when I suddenly realized that someone was doing a reading on something, and we immediately threw anchor there. And again, I was
Uh-huh.
the only diver because I was going on my own. And then, so it wasn't very deep, just 42 meters. And as I went in, I was like amazingly thrilled to find a wing of an aircraft, and
Okay.
then subsequently a crash site. So that's also a really interesting story. So again, this is a very interesting, exciting period for me because I was like, okay, now what's this aircraft? So I went back and I was doing research on aircraft crashes, and you know that there was a war in Sri Lanka, right? So there were
Yeah.
Air Force planes that had crashed, but none of the planes matched the evidence I found. So there were wings, there were propellers, there were wheels, and it took, I think, about 1 month to figure out what the aircraft was with the help of internet experts and aircraft experts who pointed out that this is a American consolidated Catalina, PBY-5A. And
Okay.
so once I identified the aircraft, then the second part was like, okay, where did this come from? Like, why were there American aircraft in Sri Lanka, right? Or when were there American aircraft in Sri Lanka? So it turned out that during World War II,
Mhm.
we had several Catalina bases in Sri Lanka.
Did you on the East Coast, right?
Actually,
Yeah.
the main base was in the south, place called Koggala. It's still an Air Force base. It's a lake. And
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
yeah, it's a quite nice area. And they operated Catalinas from the lake. But these Catalinas didn't have wheels. They were water operated Catalinas, right?
Okay.
So another interesting thing, I don't know if you know about it. Do you know during World War II, because the Japanese had taken over, I believe, Indonesia and that Singapore, that area, the British did not have a direct connection to Australia. So because usually you fly from Sri Lanka, Singapore, wherever to Australia, right? So there's a transit point.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a air route. So they started a Catalina service from Koggala to Perth, non-stop
Okay.
non-stop flights. So it was technically a civilian operation, but it was actually used for military purposes to take letters and whatnot, people back and forth from Australia to Sri Lanka. And they flew 5 Catalinas.
Okay.
Very interesting. They took 28 to 32 hours, and they call this aircraft double sunrise planes. And the reason is when they took off from one location, you could see sunrise, and before landing, you could see sunrise again. So they were in the air for 28 to 32 hours non-stop, right? So they modified the Catalinas, extended the fuel capacity, all that fuel capacity. A very interesting history. And have you heard of the double sunrise?
No, this is the first time actually.
There's a documentary on YouTube, I think, on that as well. So
Okay.
none of these 5 planes had crashed. So then, I couldn't figure it, but finally figured out that there was a Catalina, the amphibious Catalina base in the middle of Sri Lanka, operated by the Dutch. So again, because the Japanese had taken over Java or Indonesia, there was a run of Dutch pilots with Catalinas, amphibious Catalinas. So they escaped Indonesia and they came to Sri Lanka, and they collaborated with the RAF, and under the RAF, Royal Air Force, they operated the Dutch squadron, RAF Squadron 321. And they were doing bombing missions from Sri Lanka, targeting the Japanese submarines because these Catalinas had a massive range, and they were good in dropping depth charges. So they were anti-submarine planes, in other words, right? So they had this what's called metric wave radar, which could detect submarines underwater. And on this particular day in December 1943, December 16, if I remember the date correctly, they were called to do a mission early in the morning to fly to Andaman Islands to destroy Japanese submarines. That flight had engine problems and it crashed in the sea. So all the crew survived. They managed to get back. So it turned out that I had found that particular plane that crashed in
Wow.
1943.
Did you contact any historical people from the World War II, like who are studying World War II and stuff?
Oh, yeah. So I forgot to tell you, once I figured out what plane this was, I contacted the Dutch embassy. And the Dutch ambassador immediately appointed a committee in the Netherlands with a former Air Force commander and a Catalina expert. They looked at all my pictures, videos, and after 3 weeks, they came back and said, "Yes, this is the Catalina we lost." And one of the main pieces of evidence was the propeller, the position of the propeller. So it had two propeller engines, and so they all survived. So in their reports, they had flight engineer had mentioned that when the port side engine failed or the left engine failed, they had set the propellers to feathering. Feathering is you kind of change the propeller to a position where it's more optimal aerodynamic airflow around it, and it can actually use it it makes the plane float a little bit longer, right? So out of the two engines I found, one had the propellers feathered and the other one is in the operating position. So along with that, they confirmed that it was their plane.
Nice. That's really interesting. I love the historical part of World War II. So since now I'm based in Switzerland, I've got a good friend of mine here who is also a history buff, especially World War II.
Right.
We are planning to go and check out some forests in Germany where a lot of the battles happen. Germany and Belgium.
Yeah.
Both.
That'll be really interesting. There must be a lot of tanks, right?
Yeah, according to my friend, there's in one of the forests where one of the bloodiest battles against Americans and Germans happen. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
You could see.
I've seen a bunch of movies, really interesting, horrific stuff, but interesting historically.
Yeah. That's gonna be fun. Maybe this summer we'll go.
Nice.
Hey DJ, there are a lot of younger guys who want to get into cave diving and exploration, Rex. What's the advice you'll give to someone who is really trying to get into it?
I think follow your passion and go ahead if you think that's something that excites you and keep you engaged. But I would also, at the same breath, say that don't rush, because I see a lot of people who like suddenly they want to go from like zero to hero very quickly, right? And I would say like take your time. You do a course, you practice, you do the next course. So very progressive, very slow, and build your experience, build your skills without just doing courses, rushing, like doing all the tech courses. So that's my only thing, because I think I did all of these over a span of like almost 10, 15 years or 20 years. And for me, it was just the journey, not the destination, right? So you just improve little by little and you go. So my only thing is that, so go for it, but don't just try and do everything overnight.
Don't go from zero to hero. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So, you were part of the support team during my 50-hour. From your side, what was that experience like?
It was a very unique experience, and thank you very much for providing that opportunity. And also, I would say like you did a remarkable feat of endurance. Really, really amazing. Was really glad to be part of it. And so, from my perspective, I would say it was Okay, so I'll just speak the thoughts that come to my mind. First and foremost, it was a very beautiful place. And Mafushi, that was such a beautiful place. And then something happened that I hadn't realized because I'm going for all these crazy planned tech dives, logistically challenging, and so it's always you're on the edge, right? Sometimes you spend more time planning, and it's a bit stressful rather than the enjoyment. The enjoyment is like maybe less, but then suddenly this whole diving at Mafushi, because I had the shifts and then I had some off time. Can you remember I used to drop in during off times and see how it works?
Yeah.
So I was going all around the reef during my off hours. And it was so beautiful. It kind of took me back to my open water days where I just, relaxed dives, connecting with nature. So just enjoying nature, all that. And the second thing was obviously the actual work. So I think the biggest thing I remember was it was so you and I did the first shift. Can you remember when you started
Yeah.
off the first 2
Yeah.
hours? And the
Yeah.
previous day we had done a test run, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
We did a 3 hour.
3 hour
We did a
test.
3 hour. Yeah.
And so I think one day I had the shift at 11 p.m. or so. I think that was very memorable because can you remember the one team? They wanted to cheer you up, and they showed up in dressed in all sorts of costumes and drag and
Oh
all
yeah.
that, and they were doing a dance for you underwater. I was like
Yeah.
laughing.
Yeah, that really kept me entertained. That was Said's idea.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That I remember vividly. Like what a weird, like a beautiful reef, and all these people in weird costumes dancing in the middle of the night, like 11 p.m., 12, 1 o'clock. I don't know at one time.
Yeah. I can't remember the time.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
And then I remember, I think one of the main duties was like when you were sleeping, like, there's this bed and we had to strap you onto the bed. Then we had to change tanks, right? While you were sleeping, we had to do that. There was a small valve switch we had to do. So you were happily sleeping and we were doing the valve switches and all that. So yeah, and I think that's the only dive I've done at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. that time period. 2 hours from 11 a.m. to 1:30 or whatnot. Yeah, so that was a very, very unique experience for me.
My Maldivian support team talks highly of you.
Nice to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
It's
bunch
like
of guys.
even for the next project, they've been asking like if you are gonna be part of it or not.
Yeah, your next projects. I think there'll always be projects with you.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see.
Let's see.
One of the dives that I remember doing with you, which really is close to my heart, is the Hermes.
Yes,
Remember that one?
yes. 10, 11 years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. With Ramsey.
Ramsey, yes. That
Yeah,
really loved it. Can you remember we crashed a wedding?
yeah. Well, Ramsey crashed it.
No,
Dragged us in.
all three of us, like we were about to go for the dive, and this couple was in the hotel trying to pose for a photo. And then I went and asked them, can we go and can we post with them? So all of us were with our diving, like I don't know, whatever the t-shirts, improperly dressed, was crashed the wedding photo or some photo that they were taking.
I thought it was Ramsey who went and
No, actually, I went and
had
spoke to
it
them.
up.
Yeah,
Okay. Crazy dive. I would love to go and dive the Hermes again.
yeah. I haven't dived it for 4 years, so I'm also looking forward at some point to do it in the future.
It's like one of the most interesting wrecks that I've done because of the history.
Yeah. It's worth mentioning. So it's the world's first purpose-built aircraft carrier. Sorry, purpose-designed aircraft carrier that was meant to be aircraft carrier grounds up, and the only aircraft carrier that sank in battle that can be dived. And I believe So there are three distinctions. So the
Mhm.
first design, the only diveable aircraft carrier, and the only aircraft carrier to have sunk in battle that can be dived, or something like that. Three unique aspects to it.
Okay. And it's like, for me, I don't know, it's a war grave.
It
So
is, yeah.
you can't really go inside and disturb the stuff. And that's the only downside to it. You can't really penetrate it that much. It's upside down, right?
Unfortunately, it keeled over, and so there is areas that are like, I would say, so it's not really going inside, but you can just, like, on the side there are places which I'm sure you don't disturb anything, because so 307 sailors perished in that out of 600 or something. So it's one of the war graves, designated war graves.
Yeah. Let's plan something.
Yeah, sure,
Maybe
sure.
next year
Yeah.
after my project, depending
Yes.
if we have time.
Yes.
And you've written Ghosts of the Deep. That's the only book you've written, right?
Yes. Yes.
Just 2 volumes.
Ghost of the Deep original and the extended revised edition.
Extended.
Yeah.
How is the sales going? Is it good?
Yes, it's the only book of its kind in Sri Lanka, and now we have a lot of divers. Actually, I'm really happy to say that compared to 20 years ago when I started diving, now there are divers I don't recognize. So you know what I'm trying to say, right? Earlier, I knew all the divers. There was like a handful of divers. Everyone knew each other. Now there are so many new people coming in. It's really great to see, and the dive industry in Sri Lanka seems to be thriving. So it also has created a market for the book, which people use it as a reference for diving. So I always say, like, you don't have to read it, the full book, but before you go for you dive a shipwreck, read the book and dive. Then it enhances your experience that much.
Where can listeners get a copy of your book?
Published by this publisher called Vijitayapa, and they have an online store, so you could order it online, Vijitayapa bookshops.
Okay, I'll put the link.
That'll be great, yeah.
What's the hardest thing? Cave diving or writing books or diving wrecks?
That's such a complicated question.
You got 3 choices.
3 choices. Okay. You know what? I think in a way, writing a book is harder.
I don't agree on that because I'm trying now for almost 3 years to finish another edition of Colors of the Ocean.
Yeah, I think it's hard because in a way, it's a larger project, right? Like, for example, the Ghost of the Deep covered all the shipwrecks around Sri Lanka, well, at least 50, 55. Then you got to do the research, whereas cave diving, it's physically challenging, it's mentally challenging, but it's kind of in a different league. So, yeah, I would say writing a book is more challenging than cave diving.
So you've done so much already in terms of exploration. What is driving you? What is keeping you chasing the unknown?
Well, I'm always looking for interesting projects. So if there's any whiff of something to be explored, I always jump for it. I mean, now I think it's you always reach a saturation point. For example, like now I've done so many dives here, and it's like really hard to find another opportunity, right? But once in a while, things just pop up. So, for example, last year I got a lead from a fisherman that there's this remains of another plane off Colombo, and I started diving with 2 other divers, and we actually mapped out the site and we did measurements, all that. Then I started calling people, digging into history, and turned out that I found the aircraft was really badly deteriorated, right? Compared to even worse than the one I found in the East Coast. But it was really interesting again, I had to go through like all the World War II aircrafts that crashed off Colombo, all that, right? So for me, it's a journey. You always learn so much, even though the outcome might not be very interesting. But I've actually found a person in the 1980s. He had actually dived this aircraft before, and at that time, the aircraft was intact, and it turned out to be an American Grumman Avenger, TBF.
Okay, from World War II.
So yeah, so World War II. Only thing is that those aircrafts were introduced after the. So the Japanese Air Force attacked, or the Imperial Navy attacked Sri Lanka, right, or Ceylon.
Yeah.
So they were introduced after that. So it is unlikely that it was part of any battles. It was probably ditched. Maybe they ditched it in the ocean because of some engine problem or something, or it was just dumped. Because the British did give the Americans did give the British some TBF Avengers, and there was a squadron of them in the East Coast as well. Yeah, so another American aircraft. How about that? Two American
Yeah.
aircraft.
Yeah. Did you hear about the fighter jet went into the Red Sea
Yes,
a couple of days ago?
yes. It's heard about it. Yeah, yeah.
A little too deep, I guess, for
Yeah,
us.
unfortunately, yeah.
Has diving changed how you look at life above the surface now?
Um, well, yeah, I mean, I think it's been such a big part of my life in the last 23 years. And I think every time you look at the ocean, I see something different than any other person, right? Any other person looks at the ocean, they just see the waves. But it's like I imagine I'm Superman and I look into the waves and I see a shipwreck. So every time I look at the ocean, I imagine myself like extraying into the bottom and seeing something like a rock or a fish. So it's quite amazing how you perceive the ocean.
That's interesting. And what's next for you? What are the future plans, except being part of the Across Maldives project?
Yes. Hopefully, I will be part of that. Nothing planned for the moment. So I'm just waiting for any leads or anything that might be there for the exploration. So for the moment, I'm actually trying getting back to my roots. Just enjoy the dives and just relax and take pictures or take videos. So you when you become an explorer, you leave something behind. You leave the joy, the pure joy of relaxed diving, right? Because otherwise, all the dives you do are mission oriented, right? They are decompression dives. You got like 20, 25, 30 minutes underwater. So you got to maximize that time when you search. So it's everything is you need to plan. You are going on a mission. It's stressful. And the only joy out of it is the joy of discovery. But now I'm at the moment focusing on just the joy of diving and just being present and being underwater.
I guess I'll do that after this next project.
Next one. Yes,
Next
yes.
year.
You know very well know about projects, right? How they consume it.
Yeah. Is there a dive location that's on your bucket list that you still haven't ticked off yet?
Um, so in Maldives, I've heard of a lot of things about the shark tank. I don't know how good it is. That's in Mali, right? So that's one thing that's in my mind. Then Adu Atoll in Maldives. Then of course a little bit more it's outlandish Raja Ampat and Cocos Islands, Galapagos. Those are like my bucket list at some point if I can do it. It was very expensive as well. So
Talking about Shark Tank, it is interesting. It's right on the reef of Fulumale. I did it last February,
right,
couple of dives. It's interesting, and it's also it's fed. It's charming.
right.
Almost 7 different species of sharks there you can see on one dive.
Wow.
So that's why it's interesting for me.
Right.
And last February, yeah, a tiger nearly took off the arm of my camera, the strobe.
Wow.
Really had a bite on that, like just a checkout bite. What the hell this is?
Yeah. I can. I never seen a tiger shark.
Really?
Yeah, I never seen.
Then you should just fly in,
Yeah.
stay in Hulumale, do a dive with. There's a really good operation. That's the only one I would recommend
Right.
diving with.
Okay.
It's called Raja Divers.
Right.
They are really professional. They look out for the safety of the divers as well, and they know how to handle the whole operation
Oh,
really well.
great.
It's not like a circus.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like
Yeah.
circuses. Never liked.
Yeah. If you ever plan to go, that's the only guys that I would recommend.
Great. We'll check it out, hopefully.
All right, DJ, thank you so much for being on this podcast with me. This is, I know, just a start. So thank you again. And that's a wrap for today with DJ. Crazy dives, wild stories, and a whole lot of inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to come on.
No worries, Shaff. Thank you so much for including me. And it was a pleasure to talk to you and it was fun as well. And all the best with your podcast series and hopefully see you around soon.
And thank you, listeners, for hanging out with us. And as always, keep chasing the adventure, keep chasing the unknown, and don't forget to dive crazy.
See you, Shaff.